buttons are really irresistible. Now, accountants were already considered 94% done for in 2018, but that's just the first hit weakening the bridge's foundations. After industry and technology, another E is going to join in to ruin your drive to work. Demography is destiny. You probably heard the term population collapse on the internet already.
The biggest problem the world will face in 20 years is population collapse.
Population collapse.
The population collapse.
How is that a bad thing? Doesn't common sense dictate that fewer people mean there are more jobs to be had? Unfortunately, conventional wisdom is not all that great at predicting the future. Think back about 20 or 30 years. Movies, intellectuals, heck, some people in your family probably kept saying things like, "There are too many people on the planet. We are like parasites consuming all resources. Energy and food will run out. And people will wear funny face paint in a Mad Max-like apocalyptic future." Many people believed we'd all kick the bucket by the year 2000. But fortunately, repeating something until you're blue in the face simply doesn't make it so. As it turns out, opposite happened, and until COVID came rolling in, more about that bugger in a few moments, human civilization was the best it had ever been. Let me give you a 3-minute rundown of what actually happened since people almost blew up the world. There were some real concerns that nuking Nagasaki and Hiroshima would actually ignite and burn off the Earth's atmosphere, but hey, red buttons are really irresistible. It gave governments the strange idea that clubbing your neighbors over the head and taking all their stuff was getting a little bit too counterproductive. So post-World War II, the American order and later NATO effectively kept those once common large-scale wars from happening. Piracy all but disappeared from the oceans, but thankfully not from Hollywood. Savvy? And without the need to constantly defend yourselves, in other words, a lot more parley, people started making the world, well, unlike anything we've ever seen before. Remember the song "We Are the World" from the 80s, where everything was about giving? Turns out it actually was all about making. Countries modernized and industrialized worldwide. Poverty decreased across the globe, and women's rights, including birth control, were adopted virtually everywhere. Now that's real important, but probably not because of what you think. Safe sea travel resulted in low shipping costs, which made locally produced goods more expensive than merchandise from half a world away. That had two consequences. First, it created an angry mob of French farmers who threw eggs and butter at the government building in Versailles I was trying to get my visa renewed at. If smartphones had been around then, my face would have been the first "wait, what?" meme. But on an international scale, that made people flock from the countryside to cities, because that's where the money was. Long story short, all these factors ushered in a golden age of prosperity. Remember Hiroshima and Nagasaki? That's what a once nuked radioactive wasteland looks like in 2023. Wow, the world really was a better place. Until the baby boomer generation started retiring in 2019. Now that's about when guys like Elon Musk or Peter Zehan really started talking about the notion of population collapse. You most likely know the first guy. He is spending billions to make Mars habitable in case Earth gets too messed up. Probably not the other guy. Kudos if you do. But let's just say he is consulting for the United States government. You may not like or know them, but one of them is literally a rocket scientist, and the other one predicts things like the Ukraine war with impressive accuracy.
And for the Russians to get those gaps, they don't have to just take over Ukraine. They also need to take over Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, half of Poland, half of Romania, Azerbaijan, Armenia, and Georgia.
Of course, the actual end of the world is pretty unlikely to happen, but again, not for the reasons you will like. And in case you're wondering why I just spent your valuable time talking about demographies in a course called AI Adaptation Academy, it's about to become crystal clear. Hope you're sitting down.